The French Revolution, which began in 1789, had a profound impact on Europe. As the revolutionaries in France aimed to establish a republic and spread revolutionary ideals, the monarchies of Europe grew increasingly alarmed. The execution of King Louis XVI in 1793 and the rise of radical Jacobins further heightened tensions. In response to the revolutionary threat emanating from France, various European powers formed the First Coalition in 1792, including Austria, Prussia, and Spain. Their initial efforts were largely unsuccessful, and France, under the leadership of generals like Napoleon Bonaparte, expanded its territory and influence. By 1797, France had emerged victorious in the War of the First Coalition, signing the Treaty of Campo Formio with Austria. This peace treaty redrew the map of Europe, with France gaining control of the Austrian Netherlands, modern-day Belgium, and parts of Italy. However, the peace was short-lived. The French Directory, the governing body in France at the time, continued to pursue an aggressive foreign policy. Napoleon in Egypt. In 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte, then a general in the French army, embarked on a campaign to conquer Egypt. This move was partly aimed at disrupting British trade routes to India and the Far East and partly at extending French influence into the Mediterranean region. Napoleon's campaign in Egypt had both military and scientific objectives, and it marked the beginning of a new chapter in the War of the Second Coalition. The British Navy, under Admiral Horatio Nelson, defeated the French fleet at the Battle of the Nile in 1798, effectively trapping Napoleon's army in Egypt. This victory dealt a significant blow to French ambitions in the Middle East, but it did not deter Napoleon, who continued to consolidate his power in Egypt and build a new empire in the region. Meanwhile, the French Directory's expansionist policies alarmed European powers, and they began to consider a new coalition against France. The formation of the Second Coalition. In 1799, Austria and Russia, along with the Ottoman Empire and the Kingdom of Naples, formed a new alliance against France, marking the beginning of the Second Coalition. The coalition sought to counter French expansionism and contain the revolutionary ideals that the French Republic represented. Napoleon's return. While the coalition was forming, events in France took an unexpected turn. In November 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte staged a coup, overthrowing the French Directory and establishing a new government known as the Consulate. As first consul, Napoleon held effective power in France and set about consolidating his authority. Napoleon's return to France was a turning point in the conflict. His military and strategic genius, along with his charismatic leadership, gave the French army a new sense of purpose and cohesion. He embarked on a series of successful campaigns to defeat the coalition forces. Battle of Marengo, 1800. One of the early battles of the Second Coalition, the Battle of Marengo, took place in northern Italy. Napoleon's victory at Marengo is considered a turning point in the war. The battle's outcome helped secure the French position in Italy and forced Austria to sign the Treaty of Luneville in 1801, effectively ending the war between France and Austria. Battle of Hohenlinden, 1800. In the same year, the French army, led by General Moreau, defeated the Austrian army in Bavaria at the Battle of Hohenlinden. This victory prompted Austria to sign the Treaty of Pressburg in 1801, further isolating Britain and bringing peace to the continent. Treaty of Amiens, 1802 and 1802. The Treaty of Amiens was signed between France and Britain, effectively ending the hostilities between the two nations. This marked a brief period of peace in Europe and provided a respite from the ongoing wars. However, it was short-lived, as tensions and disagreements would eventually lead to the resumption of hostilities. The lasting impact. The War of the Second Coalition had several far-reaching consequences for Europe and the world. Napoleonic expansion. The war further expanded Napoleon's influence and solidified his position as the de facto ruler of France. It marked the beginning of the Napoleonic era, which would see the emperor conquer and reorganize much of Europe, creating the Napoleonic Empire. Political realignment. The war marked a significant shift in European politics. The old order of monarchies and dynastic alliances was increasingly challenged by the principles of the French Revolution. The Napoleonic era saw the spread of revolutionary ideals and the dismantling of traditional institutions. Changes in borders. The Treaty of Luneville and the Treaty of Pressburg redrew the map of Europe. France gained control of territories such as Lombardy, Tuscany, and other parts of northern Italy. Meanwhile, the Holy Roman Empire was dissolved in 1806, further altering the European political landscape. The rise of British naval power. The British Royal Navy's dominance of the seas was underscored by its victories during the Second Coalition, particularly the Battle of the Nile. This era saw Britain emerge as the world's preeminent naval power. The spread of nationalism, the Napoleonic Wars, and the War of the Second Coalition contributed to the rise of nationalism in many European states. The desire for self-determination and national identity became increasingly prominent, challenging the traditional authority of empires.
The War of the Second Coalition, fought between 1798 and 1802, was a complex and transformative conflict that reshaped the political, social, and territorial landscape of Europe. The rise of Napoleon Bonaparte and his military prowess, the shifting alliances, and the clash of revolutionary ideals with traditional monarchies all contributed to the profound changes that would define the 19th century in Europe. While the war ended temporarily with the Treaty of Amiens, it was merely a prelude to the further conflicts and dramatic events that would characterize the Napoleonic era and the 19th century in Europe.